This question has been posed to me many times, but never in that fashion. I just know the journey that I'm on and where I hope for this journey to end.
But what would your advice be to help, reverts or brothers to evaluate what are the things that they can, continue with and how to kind of harness those positive aspects into Islam?
But the supplication of a revert is very, very powerful because it's like a newborn baby. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? You're at your most vulnerable state all over again. I tell
Yeah.
people this story about brothers in prison. You know what I'm saying? There's a certain scenario that's repetitive in prison when a person or a Muslim comes to a new compound, honored. Even the non-Muslims, he'll steer him to his brothers. He'll steer him
Yeah.
right to the Jamaat. Like, oh, yo, you Muslim? Okay, your brothers is over there. You know, that advice is something that also applies to myself every time I give it because I'm a parent as well. But we realize that we're growing, but we're growing apart, which is kind of my flagship project. You know, I'm working on the book, 6-part doc series on my life.
Yeah. So there's a lot more to come basically with
Oh,
the played
wow.
meals.
It's so amazing.
Life is one big road with a lot of signs, signs and more signs. You gotta make up your mind to face reality all the time. No.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to another episode of Journeys Podcast. This is episode 11. Alhamdulillah. Today I'm joined by a brother who needs no introduction. Very well-known brother. The brother previously known as Loon, now known as Amir or Loon to Amir. And akhi, that's kind of what actually I wanted to start talking about. And welcome to the podcast. You know, as a revert to Islam, someone who's converted to the religion, we go through processes of change and development. And you've been known as Loon, you've been known as now Amir, and you've had different stages in your life. You've been, involved in gang culture. You've been involved in the music industry. You've just, alhamdulillah, come out of prison. Who do you feel you are now? And in terms of your identity now, where are you?
Alhamdulillah. Now, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajma'een. This question has been posed to me many times, but never in that fashion. So, now, barakallahu feek. So, like, as Muslims, we always look at ourselves as a work in progress, and we continuously striving to do things that are pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I don't know if I have the capacity or ability to depict my current state. I just know the journey that I'm on and where I hope for this journey to end. Now, in regards of the different transitional phases that took place in my life, leading up to who I am now, I would definitely say I'm a much better person than I was.
Yeah.
Still room for improvement, but a much better person than I was.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
What in terms of, I know as a revert as well, we sometimes, when we become Muslim, we have the crowd that say you have to change your name, you should be called by this name. I know for yourself, you were raised by your grandparents. What do they call you? What do these people call you? What's the name that you feel most comfortable with now and that you kind of go by?
Well, like you said, being a revert, and I think anybody that is challenged with any type of adversity, your initial innate instinct is to completely abandon and abstain the thing that, has created the challenge and remove yourself from it, in its entirety in order to start the healing process. So I think that what a lot of people do, especially reverts, who do have sincere intentions, that do intend to immerse themselves in this religion of truth, in this religion of justice, in this religion that requires a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
So in order to establish that, one has to remove themselves from the things that contradict that objective.
Mm.
So I think the need or desire to acquire a Muslim name is to rid yourself of any remnants
Mm.
of who you were, in your ignorant state. So for me, it was more so about, exactly that, wanting to
Mm.
remove myself, wanting to be able to start the healing process, and basically coming from the lifestyle that I was living in the music business. It was a lot to unpack. It was a lot to try to remove,
Yeah.
so to say, So with that being said, this abrupt halt and abstinence from that lifestyle is
Mm.
what enabled me to get to a point where I learned to accept people calling me Loon, or
Yeah.
someone that may know me from like day one that may call me, by my government name.
Yeah.
My grandparents, they never stopped that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like you can get as disciplined or firm as you want, you know. But when these particular people, may Allah have mercy on both of them, call you, and the beauty of it is from the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu, what I'm saying, to respond in this manner, from your parents, and those who are entrusted, with your welfare. So I had to get to a point and learn to accept that if a person calls me Loon, it's because they know me as Loon, and it opens a door and the opportunity for them to learn who Amir is. You know what I'm saying? Same thing as someone tries to call me by my government name, insinuating that they've known me forever. Because some people need to do that just to solidify, what I'm saying, or validate, who they are, how long they've known you. Like, oh, his name ain't nothing. But you know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah.
I get it. You want to state your claim. You want to state your claim and basically say you know me forever. That's cool. But
Yeah.
now you have to go through the process as well of
Mm.
learning who Amir is. So at first, I was a little standoffish about it because I didn't want anybody to identify me as someone I was trying to leave.
Yeah.
But then I learned later to accept that, there is some remnants of Loon that
Yeah. Yeah.
exists. And Loon wasn't wasn't an all bad guy or around.
Mm.
It was a lot of good qualities that I had that I brought to Islam with me. You know?
That's what I think, I was trying to highlight a bit, and I think all reverts have this element of like sometimes we become Muslim and we want to get rid of all of these things that preceded that are in contradiction to Islam, and then later on, maybe when we mature and we're older and we can look back at life and we can see, hang on, there were things that Allah blessed me with, even in Jahiliyyah, and that's even from the mercy of Allah that, and we know that, the best of you before Islam are the best of you in Islam, and so, I think it takes a level of maturity to kind of, look back on your life and look at the blessings that Allah gave you even before Islam and incorporate those, positive aspects of your previous, life into where you are now. And so what would be your advice to, reverts and brothers who, because I think for some people, obviously it varies from individual to individual, but some people, because of where they're from or what they've experienced, maybe they need to kind of get out of that environment and have a new environment and almost kind of like a detox.
Yeah.
But what would your advice be to help, reverts or brothers to evaluate what are the things that they can, continue with and how to kind of harness those positive aspects into Islam?
I would say to the revert, more important than anything is to keep Allah's name and mentioning of his name on your tongue, meaning supplicating,
Mm.
because this actually becomes more of a powerful weapon for a revert who hasn't learned Surah Al-Fatiha, hasn't really learned, Shurut al-Salat and all of the things that helps them adhere to the first obligation after the Shahada, which is the prayer. But to
Mm.
educate, a revert to constantly ask Allah to make this journey easy for me.
Yeah.
Ya Allah, protect me from, those who may want to lead me astray from this guidance. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So on and so forth. The supplication of a revert is very, very powerful because it's
Mm.
like a newborn baby. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? You're at your most vulnerable state all over again, regardless of what age you may enter the fold of Islam, whether you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your
Mm.
60s, it doesn't matter. The moment you enter the fold of Islam, all of your previous deeds have been forgiven
Yeah.
and you're purified. Secondly, I would say trust the guidance. Trust the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and trust the process that comes with that guidance. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? Because to enter Islam wholeheartedly and sincerely means you've accepted the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, there may be some things that influence or intrigue non-Muslims to want to accept Islam, but it's important for us who are already rooted in Islam and been Muslim longer is to get them acclimated with the inception of what just took place is that you have
Mm.
been guided. You've
Yeah.
been guided to this blessed deen of Islam. The
Alhamdulillah.
story of how you got here is just as important, but more important is that what led to that decision was the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and trust that guidance. Know that
Mm.
Allah wants good for you in this life, and Allah wants good for the believers in the next life. And Allah
Mm.
never forsakes the believers. So this is a reassurance. I
Mm.
wish somebody would have told me this. You know what I'm saying? When I became Muslim,
Yeah.
alhamdulillah, Allah put a lot of things in my heart that inclined me to want to seek knowledge, to surround myself with Muslims who feared Allah and
Mm.
who are rooted in seeking knowledge. So these things acted as a security for me, and this became the company I kept. This became the environment that I frequent in. So there wasn't really no room for me to straddle, you know what I'm saying, or
Mm.
challenge with things that preceded, because I removed myself from that environment, from the people who frequent in that environment, and I became immersed in the environment that was for my betterment, you know.
Yeah.
So I would say definitely trust the guidance of Allah, trust the process that comes with that guidance, and more importantly, supplicate to your Lord, beg your Lord to make this journey easy for you, you know what I'm saying, to purify your heart and your intentions, surround
Yeah.
you by people, you know what I'm saying, who have your best interests, who fear Allah, who want good for you, who want good for the Muslims. All of these supplications are very, very powerful and very valid for someone who's new to the religion of Islam.
Jazakallah khair. So what you mentioned there when you mentioned as well about the supplication, it kind of reminds me of a small story, a bit relevant to you. When I was I think first Muslim, I think maybe the first year, I spent Ramadan at one of my uncles in Long Island, New York,
Okay.
right? So I have an uncle out there,
Alhamdulillah.
and I was basically taking a train from Manhattan to Long Island, and the
Are
train
you on the
stopped.
Long Island Railroad?
Yeah, on the Long Island Railroad,
Yeah.
exactly. So the train stopped at Jamaica, Queens, and it was like time for iftar. I'm a British guy. I know nothing about anything to do with New York and nothing like where anything is. Yeah, all I knew is soon it's going to be iftar. I need to get some food and I need to pray Maghrib. So I went to this pizza place. I bought a pizza and I started walking down the road with this pizza, making dua. Or maybe actually I needed to pray Asr on the way. I think I forgot. So anyway, I was just making dua. Ya Allah, give me somewhere I can pray. Let me be able to find somewhere to pray. And I was just walking. I didn't even know where I was walking. I just walked, took a right, took a left here, took a left. Next thing you know, I just landed right up at some masjid. And there was like this masjid in front of me. I think it was maybe like Asian community masjid or something like that. I kind of walked in. I was like, Alhamdulillah, prayed my salat, went back, got my pizza, went back on the train and went back to Long Island. So, I mean, the reason I tell this story is because you mentioned the supplication. And I wondered as well, if you had any, things in your mind that you could think back to of those moments where you make that dua and it's like almost like miraculous how Allah answers it, subhanallah.
Oh man, Alhamdulillah, I ain't gonna lie to you. I've been definitely favored with numerous occasions where, supplicating to Allah, meaning sincerely exhausted of any alternative method of dealing with a affair. Because we go through our process of trying to utilize whatever resources we have that's tangible. And once you exhaust those things, we know at that point there's nowhere else to turn to but Allah subhanahu
Yeah.
wa ta'ala. So for me, I think one of the supplications that actually still to this day have been active in my life is that when I first started doing talks, I always asked Allah to protect me, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
from deviation, from the sunnah, protect me from the people, of innovation and desires, you know. And I've always asked for this protection because I knew that sincerely my goal was to reach the people who my story, and, the things that transpired in my life would be a benefit for. And I always sought protection from those who may try to take advantage of that or exploit that in some way, shape, or form. Because coming out of the music business, this is something that is widespread.
Yeah.
It's a character flaw. You know what I'm saying? Islam is not free of characters or characteristics that conform with this type of, ideology or way of, a way of living. So I always ask the Lord to keep me firm upon that which was correct and always surround me around those who were firm upon that which was correct. And still to this day, Allah has placed me in the bosom of people who dedicated their lives, aspiring to seek knowledge and nearness to Allah. I have a circle of brothers that, I can laugh, joke with all day. But when serious matters or affairs come about, their advice is sound and
MashaAllah.
it's firm, to the
Yeah.
point where it sounds, feels, and appears to be sincere advice. I think sometimes we
Yeah.
leave off one of those three elements,
Mm.
because sometimes things come in the form of advice, but it could
Yeah.
really be an admonishment. It's like you trying to admonish me or advise me. I'm confused. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
when sincere advice, even when it's delivered in a sense of being stern, it's only because when it's coming from someone that's sincere, it feels that way. It feels like someone who's that concerned and troubled about the danger that you may enter in, that the advice becomes synonymous with the emotion and how it's delivered. So this is
Yeah.
something that's always aided me and helped me, is that
Yeah.
I
MashaAllah.
never wanted to be, hurled into a space where my Islam would be attacked internally. Because as Muslims, we're always prepared to defend Islam externally, right? From all the external forces, alongside the only internal and true enemy that we have is the shaitan, wa iyadhu billah. But then you also have to be mindful of the deficiencies that people possess. And that is where I always sought protection from.
Yeah.
And to this
MashaAllah. I
day,
mean,
Allah has kept me firm upon having
alhamdulillah.
companions that have my best interest, that want good for me, even when those who may not, it's like brothers rally. Wallahi, it's the same on Instagram. Like I might post something and I always get one, and that's another blessing from Allah. I don't get an abundance of negativity on social
Yeah.
media. There's always maybe one guy telling me, "Hey, listen, man, you're a black man, you're a black Israelite. What are you doing? You let these Arabs, it's always that radical,
Yeah.
black nationalist guy that
Yeah.
doesn't see that true unity is not established through nationalism." So I get that attack. But then you
Yeah.
had brothers and the sisters as well. I mean, they pounce on him. You'll see 37 replies to this one guy's statement. I mean, they on his head too with the lil too. I mean, legislation, Quran,
Yeah.
sunnah. They ain't just, defending their brother honor by way of emotion. They're defending my honor by way of Islam, by way of legislative proofs. So this is something that I've seen consistently work since I made that supplication, and I continue to make that supplication every time I miss a Jew.
Yeah, mashallah. And I think that's, the one of the wonderful things, we can appreciate as reverts, about Islam, that the way that the Muslims are, so protective over their brothers and sisters, the true sincere Muslim, when they see someone embrace Islam, that person could have been someone that you were enemies with, or you were, you would never have rolled with before Islam. But once they become Muslim, now, you'll be, if you're sincere, you'll be one of the people that will jump in front to protect your brother.
Wallahi, there's a hadith that mentioned, the one that loves Allah, Allah will make the people love you. So when the people defend the Muslims, first and foremost with the intention of defending Allah's deen and defending the sunnah of his messenger. So when that trickles down to you, know what I'm saying? The euphoria that you feel, knowing that someone's intention has lumped you in or included you in their love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that you have made a part of that. And I think a lot of us as Muslims, we take that for granted. You know what I'm saying? When you have a sincere individual who believes in Allah on the last day, who worships Allah and Allah alone, who follows the sunnah of his prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they lump you into that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when you look at it from that perspective, you understand how favored you are, how blessed you are.
Yeah.
That this person has lumped you into the relationship that he has with his Lord, the creator of the heavens and the earth and everything in between, and the best of creation that ever walked this planet, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, alayhi salatu wasalam. And then next comes your name, subhanallah. People don't think of it that way, but I always look at this stuff when I'm on social media, and it's just like, without being amazed or falling into self-servience, you just look at it and say, look, you know what, I gave up a lot of quote unquote friends or associates or people that I frequent with in my previous career that would have never fought for me this way, that would have never defended my honor this way, that would have never, stood for me or stood by me in this manner. And every day I'm grateful for that, because I know that that was a fair trade. I knew that that decision that I made to accept this blessed deen was the greatest decision I could have ever made. And leaving off everything and everyone, you know what I'm saying? Not to the sense where the door of repentance is closed, because when the law closes, it is closed. But not leaving the door, without leaving the door, or closing that door for the opportunity for some of those people that I frequent with before to come into this same fold. But to leave it off to the point where it has a certain level of, or capacity in my life, this was the fairest trade.
Yeah, mashallah. Barakallah feek. In terms of, we discussed a little bit about, your life before Islam, or just generally from the aspect of a revert, before Islam. Are there any moments that you can see in your life as a young man that you see almost as like, in hindsight, you didn't see it at the time, but in hindsight, you saw that moment and you thought, subhanallah, Allah was guiding me through that moment, or he was pushing me slowly towards, where eventually you embraced Islam. Do you have any particular moments like that when you were younger or before you were Muslim?
Well, even before I understood what Islam was, sometimes I would purposely, in vulnerable positions, place my very soul on the line, my life and everything on the line. Thinking in my heart of hearts that if it's meant for me, this was one of the things I used to live by. If it's meant for me, you know what I'm saying, I won't survive this. You know what I'm saying?
So almost like a belief in the qadar, yani.
This is fitrah.
Yeah.
This is fitrah. This is having a strong fitrah and understanding that there is a creator of the heavens and the earth. There is a facilitator of all of our affairs. know what I'm saying? We understand this for those of us that are in tune with our fitrah by Allah's permission. And I
Yeah.
was. I always understood that I was just a passenger. You know what I'm saying? I was just a passenger. And I was always geared to prepare myself for the inevitable, knowing that it's not foreseeable, it's not in my control. Even though I'm gambling with my life or placing myself in harmful situations, I always kind of had this sense of security that whatever the outcome may be, you know what I'm saying, is only going to be, you know what I'm saying, at the time, and my mindset was, you know, by God's will.
Yeah.
So when you
I
come
think,
to Islam and you learn that this is applicable,
yeah.
understanding, you know, the wisdom, the hikmah, and the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his divine decree, his qadr and qadar. You know what I'm saying? You understand these things now, you feel even more safer than you did when you was ignorant. Because when I was
Yeah.
ignorant, I felt safe in these decisions. Like, you know what? If it's meant for me, you know, I'm gonna get blasted. You know, it's gonna be, you know, it's going down. But
Yeah.
if it's not, you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna learn from it, I'm gonna grow from it, you know, and I'm not gonna take that risk again. You know what I'm saying? Because the risk is to actually get, you know, forward. We take risks to get forward. No one takes risks to go backwards. You know what I mean? You take
Yeah.
risks to go forward. So when you take a risk and it propels you forward, at that point, the learning curve is, you know what, I'm never going to have to take that risk again because I took it, I survived it. So now I know what's on the other side of that risk. Because anything past that is just ignorance, insanity, and, you know, just outright stupidity, you know?
Yeah. I think maybe you can, I mean, you can kind of confirm this, but I've always had this, you know, theory, you can say that, you know, especially, you know, the streets of, you know, London, or the street life, for example, in the UK, obviously it's not, you know, in some ways it's comparable, some ways not comparable to the US, but there's almost sometimes like an element of respect for God amongst some of the people within the street. And that's why sometimes you see, you know, many of the brothers, mashallah, come into Islam in the UK. And almost like there's almost like an element where, I mean, myself, before Islam, I was often a target, right? As, you know, a young white guy, if I'm going in certain areas in London or whatever. But when I became Muslim, there were certain areas that probably I would have never gone to before Islam. But when I went to them after I was a Muslim and visibly practicing Muslim, the people wouldn't go near you because there's this element of like almost respect because you're seen as a man of God, or you're seen as someone who is
Absolutely.
religious.
Absolutely. And that's the izzah, that honor, it comes from Allah. I tell
Yeah.
people this story about brothers in prison. You know what I'm saying? There's a certain scenario that's repetitive in prison when a person or a Muslim comes to a new compound. You know, he may got shipped from another prison to another prison. And once he sets foot on that compound, he's immediately honored. Even the
SubhanAllah.
non-Muslims, he'll steer him to his brothers. He'll steer him
Yeah.
right to the Jamaat. Like, oh, yo, you Muslim? Okay, your brothers is over there. Literally,
SubhanAllah.
like the kuffar tell you in a minute, like, oh, you know what? Your brothers is over there. Then the moment, you know, Salat comes in, you know, after the brothers then gave you a care package and everything, make sure you have everything you need. It's sajada, they let you know which direction, the Qibla and everything. He goes some food, everything. Once you settled in that, and the moment you pop that rug, you know what I'm saying? It's solidified that you're Muslim. I've
Yeah.
even had a situation where this happened to me, and, you know, a non-Muslim accidentally walked past my sutra, or thought he did, you know?
Yeah.
And you can hear them apologizing while you're in Salat.
SubhanAllah.
So
SubhanAllah.
then after you taslim, it's almost like they kind of circle in the area, not leaving the area, but waiting for you to
Yeah.
finish and then come through like, yo, I apologize. I ain't even see you praying. I was da, da, da. That's izzah. That's honor. They looking at you already respectful.
Yeah.
Now, the minute that you deviate from that, oh, you a fraud. For the
Yeah.
rest of your prison sentence, they looking at you different now. They ain't looking at you like the noble brothers. See, the noble brothers exist everywhere. In the
Yeah.
UK, United States, everywhere, the noble brothers is known that they are the ones who adhere to the religion to the best of their ability. And
Yeah.
you are automatically a part of those noble brothers. Automatically. This is from Allah, akhi.
Yeah. Yeah.
There
MashaAllah.
exists a group of brothers who are firm upon the religion, and anyone that's affiliated with them automatically gets received the same way. But the minute you deviate from that,
Yeah.
we're talking about the non-Muslims. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? We're not talking about some of the things that come from within the Jama'ah. You know what I'm saying? Where there's a, enjoining of good and forbidding of evil, or warning against, deviation for those who have knowledge and
Yeah.
understanding that these affairs are taking place. We're talking about non-Muslims who held you to a certain standard because you said, La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah. You associate with the Muslims, you pray with the Muslims, you eat with the Muslims, you frequent with the Muslims. The minute they catch you doing anything contrary to that, you're not a real Muslim. And it's harsh, but it
Yeah.
just shows you the standard that you held to in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from his
Yeah.
creation. From his creation, they see you this way. So
Yeah.
alhamdulillah,
SubhanAllah.
man, these are the things that Muslims need to constantly be reminded of as well, is that you didn't do anything for this honor.
Yeah.
It don't
Yeah.
matter what you did in Jahiliyyah. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter how many heads you bust, how much money you made, how many cars you drove, whatever the case may be. When you come to this religion, you will receive a certain level of honor that you would have never been able to accomplish with all the money on this planet.
Yeah.
Never. Because once your money is going, your honor is going in that business. No one honors you no more while you broke. They
Yeah. Yeah.
honored you while you was rich. They honored you while you was successful. They honored you while you had all these things. But once those things, by Allah's permission, is removed from you, watch how fast your honor goes.
Yeah, so I was saying, yeah, because that's one of the things, like you very eloquently set straight as well, and one of the things that brought to mind is the saying of Umar bin Khattab, where he said, we are people that were honored with Islam, and once we seek to take honor or anything via something other than Islam, that's when we will be humiliated.
Humiliated.
Subhanallah. Yeah.
We see that. We see that. May Allah help us. May Allah protect us.
Ameen.
May Allah rectify affairs. You're seeing that right now amongst the Ummah in certain areas of the world, whether
Yeah.
it's in the Muslim land or the non-Muslim land. And it's not something that's, subjected to the land, because you have some who are held in high standards who live in the bosom of the non-Muslim land. And then you have some who live, in the land of Tawheed,
Yeah.
have deficiencies, to where their Islam is looked at like other than Islam. So, this is why I always tell people, and I want to
Yeah.
use this example of the time of the Thawra in Egypt. I was living there before I went to prison during
Yeah.
the time of the Thawra when they ousted Mubarak.
Yeah.
And I use this example to highlight, the Sharia that resides in the hearts of the Muslim, And this is a reminder and an advice to those who hasten to make takfir on the Muslims and the Muslim leaders and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I experienced this. This is not hearsay or something that was conjured up amongst a group of people who speak of nothing but evil. I live in New York City, born and raised in New York City. I was in Egypt during the Thawra. You're talking about a country that didn't have a functioning government. 90 million Egyptians at the time.
Yeah.
You understand? In New York City, they had a blackout where the power went out. And in the course of 1 hour in New York City, the rate of killings, robbings, rapes, and all types of evil things that transpired just because the lights went out.
Yeah.
But in Egypt, Belad al-Muslimin, in the land of the Muslims, it never even came close. Through the whole year,
Yeah.
this country functioned without a government, never came close to the crime rate that took place in that 1 hour. You understand? So the
Yeah.
Sharia, it resides in the hearts of the people. The people
Yeah.
who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and carry this fear, this taqwa, they carry this in their heart, their behavior, even when there's
Mm.
no one to govern it, they'll govern themselves.
Yeah.
You understand?
Mm. I
With
think
all
that.
of our, yeah, with all of our deficiencies, our shortcomings, our flaws, whether they cigarette smokers or whatever, it doesn't matter. We don't look for these
Yeah.
things. These are people who are just looking for, flaws and shortcomings. These are fault
Mm.
finders. But when you
Yeah.
look at how the Ummah operates as a whole, when we're faced with adversity together, it was the greatest example Allah could have ever let me experience in a short period of time I've been Muslim.
Yeah. Subhanallah. And I think that relates almost to like you were saying, obviously within, street culture, whatever, those people are existing in a reality where they're kind of void of authority in terms of they don't respect the authority,
Yeah.
but they respect God. And then through that, Allah honors the people who are people of God, who are people who are being sincere upon
Absolutely.
Islam.
And He is the authority. It's not the
Yeah,
people that we
exactly.
appoint.
Yeah.
Allah is the authority. So if there's no
Nah.
one, no acting, authoritative figure present,
Yeah,
doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to operate like animals.
exactly.
Now, I use that example to show the contrast between those who rely on the governance of creation
Mm.
versus those who rely on the governance of their creator.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing example to actually experience in real time. In real time, you know?
Yeah,
And I pray
mashallah.
that the Muslims could take this experience of mine and apply it to understanding that you have to sometimes, under certain circumstances, overlook the faults of the Muslim.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
something that conforms with deviating in the religion,
Mm.
but just character flaws and issues that's impeding them from being better Muslims. You got to overlook those things. You know what I'm saying? We have to overlook those things and advise one another to be better, and that's Allah. That's Allah to make us better.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
Yeah. Like وتواصوا بالصبر وتواصوا بالحق.
Sa.
Exactly. Subhanallah. So we kind of drew a bit onto the topic, and I know it's a topic that you've talked about extensively on your UK tour, giving a lot of different advice and masajid to the youth, and I know that it's one of the things that you're very keen on doing because, like you've mentioned previously, you're one of the figures that the youth, even though we have the new modern day rap stars and pop stars and whatever, there's a element of the youth that look up to you and respect you and still amongst them, and you can kind of be that bridge. And because I know you've already given much advice to the youth themselves, one thing that I wanted to ask you is concerning the parents who now are perhaps young parents, perhaps older parents, but maybe they've got young kids now, maybe, between the ages of 5 to 15. And how would you advise the parents in order to try to bridge the gap? Because we know that our kids are growing up and they're growing up fast, and there's going to be things where they're like, you just don't understand this. You just don't understand what I'm going through or my reality and whatever. So what would your advice for the parents, whether young or old, to try to bridge that gap and to try to be able to relate to their kids in a way that they can have a good influence and be able to steer them away from some of the things that are afflicting the youth?
Well, alhamdulillah, that advice is something that also applies to myself every time I give it because I'm a parent as well. I have children that are adults. And the key word that you mentioned is learning to relate.
Yeah.
It's easy for us to learn to relate to people outside of our immediate circumference, meaning our homes, because when we out every day, we have to conduct ourselves in a certain way that's praiseworthy as Muslims. So we try to be cordial and respectful with everybody. We try to be considerate of certain people, conditions, and all of those things while we out and about. But
Yeah.
I think the same thing applies even more in the home. You know, my situation, for myself, and I can use this as, kind of something synonymous with the plight of most parents when it comes to the wedge between the time that's spent. You understand?
Yeah.
You have a lot of similarities with parents today who spend tedious hours outside the home working.
Mm.
In the children as well, they're spending tedious hours outside the home seeking their education. So by the time they come under one roof, everyone is pretty much exhausted and
Mm.
beat based on the time that's been spent outside the home. So there's very minimal time that's being utilized inside the home. It's
Yeah.
always assalamu alaikum wa alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah, hayati, what we having for dinner? It's like, you'll witness your father flirt with the mom, my love, Habibati, like, and then
Mm.
what's for dinner? Then it turns to the kids. I'm like, how was school today? How was Quran lessons?
Mm.
Alhamdulillah. How was your friend, saying Ahmed? So it becomes real small talk, you
Yeah.
know but it's nothing really extensively engaging. It's just the really temperature checking of
Mm.
everyone in the home. So now when you add that up weekly, monthly, you probably only spent 8 hours,
Mm.
maybe
Yeah.
8 to 10 hours out of the month,
Yeah. Yeah.
your family. You know what I'm saying? And it's
Yeah.
like
It's
a
true.
lot of people don't look at this equation
Mm.
because we're living in it, you know what I'm saying? And it becomes repetitive and we realize that we're growing, but we're growing apart.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? We're growing together under the same roof, but we're growing apart
Yeah.
because your kids got stuff going on that you don't really know. They
Yeah.
doing nothing. They ain't doing nothing wrong. For the
Yeah.
most part. You know what I'm saying? Unless they experiment with things that you haven't taught them or you
Yeah.
haven't raised them upon, then
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Mm.
But if they growing within the confines of what you establish in your home, you know that they're actually growing, but you just growing apart because of that
Mm.
communication breakdown or barrier, right?
Yeah.
So my advice to the parents, like I said, is that we have to try to find more time within our
Mm.
busy schedule and our busy lives of trying to provide for the family and protect the family financially and physically, but we also have to protect the family, emotionally and
Yeah.
socially, you know what I'm saying? And I think that that's something that, starting with myself, we all could be better at.
Yeah.
We all could be
Yeah.
better at, you
Yeah.
know.
Definitely. And I think sometimes, like, it's a problem, and I believe you touched on this before as well, but it can be more so when you got the kind of second generation of parents, who their parents came from, whether it's Bangladesh or Somalia or whatever.
Yeah.
And, those parents, they're quite, they
They're
have quite
old
a far
school.
gap.
Yeah, they old
Yeah.
school, man.
Yeah.
Sum it up, man, so that the youngsters understand they old school, they throwbacks, they dinosaurs. Like, this is the stuff
Yeah.
that they actually think and respectfully, and respectfully. It's not like it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
deep, a malicious, thinking, but it's like,
Mm.
yo, you out the loop, you know.
What would you say are like some signs of, like, because sometimes we hear stories of people who come from a practicing family, and one of the sons, he's gone off the rails, or he's, like you said, engaging in things that weren't from the confines of the house. He's picked that up from outside. He's picked that up from chilling with guys. He used to be playing football, but now he's sneaking off and doing something else. What would you say is the signs for the parent to look out for in terms of these kind of elements, or maybe?
Well, the parents have to address any changes they see.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because if you let them linger and fester, it's going to be harder to reverse. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? That's with anything, I believe. I think that's with anything. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you let a person get away with something too many times, right? By the time you
Yeah.
muster up the strength, or the zeal to approach the situation, under the guise of, rectifying or whatever case it may be, it becomes a little bit more difficult now because it's like, hold up, this been going on.
Yeah.
We ain't
Yeah.
been saying nothing.
Yeah.
We ain't say nothing before, you know. So now you have to deal with the rebellious side of that act because you allowed it to fester. You allowed them to get attached to it. You allowed them to, you know, become more fixated and fascinated with the act. So now abstaining from it is more harder. So I think when parents see changes, you know, and I'm one of the people, I just, you know, I'll ask sometimes, like, you know, everything good? You all right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everything straight?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what's going on? We all right? You know, because
Yeah.
it's like, in my approach, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying this is, you know, the blueprint.
Yeah.
However, you need to make that or take that approach, you know what I'm saying? Sincerely, because you're concerned. Because
Yeah.
curiosity, you know, it works both ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You got people like myself coming from Jahiliyyah, coming from true darkness, true ignorance, just oblivious to anything that, you know, is, you know, coincides with Islam. So your curiosity for something better or
Yeah.
something opposite of what, you know, you upon is why some of us start to get inclined to Islam for the nuance. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with those who are nurtured and cultivated upon Islam. Their curiosity for anything that contradicts that can become heightened as well.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
of
No,
it
definitely.
always stems from the peers. You know, in the
Yeah.
case of the Muslims, because it's like, you know, if you have a daughter and she, you know, she blurs out her mouth, you know, I want to get a boyfriend.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you talking about? What the
Yeah.
excuse become? Well, Fatima got one. Huh?
Yeah.
So sometimes it be the example, the peers of the Muslims who steer the other Muslims down that path. You know,
Yeah.
the curiosity is there because we're exposing our children to an environment in Western society, being exposed to this stuff, whether we like it or not. But once they see a Muslim that crosses that threshold and they're not being admonished or checked by their parents,
Yeah.
that experience reaches your home now. Now you're the harsh dad. Now you're the mom that don't understand. You're not listening. Zainab got a boyfriend. Her father's not complaining. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She's intending to get married, but she has 17 sit downs at 6 different Starbucks. Parents tolerate that, then now kids expect you to conform to that same tactic. When you may not practice that, you may not have taught that in your home, you may not expose your children to none of that. But once they get exposed to their peers, deviating from this understanding of Islam and deviating from parents who don't have the capacity. I ain't gonna never say the ability, but the
Yeah.
capacity to clamp down on their kids for fear of a lot of things that's propagated in Western society. Chastising your children nowadays can get you time in prison.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
SubhanAllah.
saying? You can actually, you know, admonish your child without touching the hair on their head. And if they feel compelled to report it or utter it in the wrong circle, you know,
Yeah.
social worker in school, pretending to have your best interest.
Yeah.
You say something that sounds remotely close to abuse, you're going to end up in the foster care and your parents going to end up in jail. So these are
Yeah.
the dangers that come with parenting in the West, you
Nah.
know. And I believe this as an excuse because I'm always going to make an excuse for the Muslims. Is that
Yeah.
a lot of these parents that come from Muslim land, they understand this stuff and they fearful of it. Because you know, in the culturally, you'd have got hit with a shoe. Mother would have threw
Yeah.
a shoe at you. You know what I'm saying? Pops may have smacked you back of your head. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Yeah, you know, you know, it'd have been a different. Now they get to the West, and the kids is taking advantage of them.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
SubhanAllah.
They see the father's reluctant to raise his hand. He might have been screaming and hollering for years, and now he ain't never touched you. You think your father is bluffing, you know?
Yeah.
All you do is yell. SubhanAllah, man. Scoot, man. Scoot. Muggle Sheffateen. You got a kid talking to you like you crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Allah
SubhanAllah.
Musta'an.
Yeah, man. I think definitely, like you said, you know, increasing in time with the family is something that we can always do.
Increasing
There's
the
never
time you
enough time.
spend in your home with your family. You know what I'm saying? Addressing changes immediately when you see him.
Mm.
You know, sometimes venturing respectfully into your children's private space without relinquishing the fact that they do have a private space.
Yeah.
But when you respectfully enter that space, you become not just a father, but you become a friend. You know, there's a
Mm.
balance between being a father and a friend, a mother and a friend. Mothers are more good at this because they're
Yeah.
nurturers by nature. So they know how to be a friend to their boys. They,
Yeah.
they learn how to be friends to their daughters later. Because daughters is attached to
Mm.
their dads, moms is attached, boys is attached to
Yeah.
their mom in the early stages. And then it just becomes this role reversal. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Daughter becomes a woman, she needs to correspond with a woman more. Boy
Yeah.
becomes
Yeah.
a man, he needs to correspond with a man more. You know what I'm saying?
No
But
doubt.
when those things take place, the parents need to be on the same page when these transitions happen.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You know, like you said, you don't want the parents to be on different pages in terms of, you know, the kids know if I go to this parent, I'm gonna get away with XYZ. So I'm not gonna tell mom. I'm gonna sneakily kind of go to dad because I know if I go to dad that I'm gonna be
Yeah.
able to get the part. So that aspect of the parents being on the same page,
Unified
having that
front.
same
Got to be a
foundation.
unified front, man. Because
Yeah.
it's times even myself, I have to like kind of double down to make sure, that my wife, you know, is on the same page with me. Sometimes when it comes to us having to take firm stances or me having
Mm.
to take a firm stance, it's like I
Yeah.
don't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't make me the bad guy, by alluding
Mm.
the shared responsibility of we both have to make this
Yeah.
adjust. Like
So
we
no
both
good cop,
have to.
bad cop.
Yeah, none of that. The kids, if you let them, they'll work you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what
It's
I'm
funny
saying?
because when you were mentioning as well, like getting in the private space, but within reason, it brought to mind actually a story that my wife told me when she was growing up. She's got a lot of sisters, so whenever it's not really relevant now because the technology is different, right? But back in the day, the house phones used to have on the same line, so they would be, speaking to their friends or whatever, and they would hear sometimes the click of the phone, and it was their father downstairs picking up the phone, and he's listening into the conversation with their speaking with their friends, this, that, whatever, and then they put the phone down, then they hear that click, so they know like they're keeping in check.
No question. Yeah.
They know that pops is
Yeah,
listening
no
to
question.
the conversation, and that kept them in check.
Cause see, yeah, one of the examples I mean is like my son. He lives, with me and my wife, his mother, his little sister, and it's like as fathers, we can be. This is speaking for myself. Sometimes we could be a little authoritative.
Yeah, yeah.
It's my house. you know. But even under that roof, you have to respect the space that's given. You know
Mm,
what I'm saying? Doesn't matter who's the breadwinner. When you're given a space, it's the
yeah,
same way we're commanded in Islam to treat our guests a certain way.
yeah,
So who has more right now, than your own
yeah,
child? They
yeah.
should
So,
they should get treated 3 times better
mm,
than your guests. So like, I go to this room, I knock on the door. It's his room. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Some parents they can just walk right in, like this is my house. So that's what I meant about like
yeah.
respectfully entering the space, not just the physical space, but any space. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Because
mm, mm.
children are different now.
Yeah, yeah,
A lot of them are
definitely.
reluctant to open up. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And especially if it feels like it's going to be a judgmental situation or something like that, they
yeah.
won't tell you.
Subhanallah,
They won't talk to you. You
subhanallah.
know what I'm saying?
Barakallah feek, akh. I know I'm conscious of the time, but
Yeah.
what I wanted to kind of come on to a little bit, if we can, and spend a little bit of time talking about, obviously, after coming out of prison, you've been very active in numerous different businesses, whether that's your paid meals, kind of philanthropy work, whether it's your boot camp and all these different things. And especially from myself, I know, sometimes I'm working, I'm trying to do this and that, whatever. What and especially seeing someone as yourself, who obviously, you have experience within the music industry, and now you're having multiple different projects and businesses and whatever. How do you organize all those different projects, and how do you um you know maintain that wide variety of things that you're always doing?
Allahu alamat. Yeah, listen, your brother Amir is spread so thin that, to be honest with you, if I don't, you know, incorporate, assistance,
Mm,
then none of this stuff will be possible.
yeah,
First and foremost, of course, by Allah's permission, I'm grateful to even have these type of opportunities. But, getting people, trustworthy people to help delegate some of these affairs makes it a lot easier.
yeah,
I'm saying. But I think with paid meals, which is kind of my flagship project, I'm working on the book, you know what I'm saying? I'm working on a 6-part doc series on my life,
yeah.
which I think is going to be really, really amazing to finally like go into depth and detail about all of the things that I've been talking about for years, and be able to give people a visual, other like accounts from other individuals who know me through all these transitions, so you can see the consistency in
Mm,
the stories I've been telling, but from a way more detailed perspective, you know.
yeah,
Um, the boot camp, something that I do anyway. But what
yeah.
I've done with the boot camp, and people understand this is a part of like the programming that I try to utilize when dealing with the youth. So, for example, just talking to the youth, it may be some, some excitement there, being that brother Amir came from where he came from. But there's a lot of
Mm,
brothers out there, students of knowledge, that probably never been in the streets. They're doing just as much of a job, if not better. You know what I'm saying? Sitting and speaking to the youth, by way of the examples of the campaigns, which their
yeah, yeah.
examples trump mine all day. But I think just because the youth need to see something tangible, someone that they can relate to, it becomes, something that's, beneficial. But the boot camp is to basically simulate adversity. Because when people do things collectively, any challenges, that adverse moment becomes your moment for forever. You know, that's why when inmates see each other, like we ain't see each other in a long time. I ain't seen you since prison. It's like immediately we gravitate to each other because we went through some form of adversity together.
Mm,
So with the boot camp, because I like to train, I tell everybody it's quick and painful. You know what I'm saying? I don't
yeah.
take a lot of breaks. I do high interval workouts. So by the time it's over, everybody's sitting there drinking water, they flabbergasted. And next thing you know, you just open up. So Aki, how you been, man? How's the family? Oh man, from that point on, because we went through that challenge together, they start to open up and talk to me. So it'll be a little
Mm,
bit something outside of just the traditional style of, darts or whatever talk.
mm,
But paid meals, you know, is definitely a passion of my wife. You
mm-hmm,
know, she is the founder of Paid Meals. We
yeah.
both share the same passion for, trying to combat food insecurity.
Mm,
You have maybe 1.5 million nonprofit organizations in the United States, and they gross about $2.6 trillion a year. So it's not even a billion people in America. So with that being said, it shouldn't be a single hungry person in the United States of America.
yeah.
So this is one of the things that motivate us to create this platform, utilizing technology, what I'm saying, and operating in this same space, but doing it from a place where the people are in control of who contributes, who receives, and what vendors provide.
Mm.
you know. So by creating that ecosystem, you're enabling the people
Yeah.
to rectify their own affair. So they don't have to wait for government assistance. They don't have to wait for the United Nations. They don't have to wait, for favors, loans, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
You create a system and a relationship through these three entities, and they will be able to, by way of technology, suffice their own affair. And that is Paid Meals 2.0 mobile application. Now, what people have been
Yeah.
seeing me do is manually implementing one functionality out the whole app. You
Mm.
know, so
So there's a lot more to come basically with
oh
the paid
wow,
meals.
it's so amazing that and us trying to be independent in the sense of we've watched throughout the years major companies that people didn't believe in that became, behemoths of companies, whether it's
Mm.
Uber, whether it's whatever, Ring,
Yeah.
all of these companies wasn't believed. People didn't believe in these companies. And I believe Paid Meals is one of these companies. So we learn
Subhanallah.
from the mistakes of those companies that may
Yeah.
have given up controlling interests of their company by, the desperation of wanting to create something for the people, but now you're left holding, or someone else is holding the lion's share of your company. So
Yeah.
100, Paid Meals is 100% owned by me and my wife, and everything, every trial and error we went through on our own.
Yeah.
So now we're in the process of raising funds for the Paid Meals mobile application, and now we're open to conversations with investors, knowing that we own 100%,
Mm.
of our company, and that we
Yeah.
built, a lot as far as the branding, as far as the visibility and everything. So, yeah, definitely, and I got a whole bunch of other, projects,
Ideas.
businesses. Yeah, I can go on and on and on.
Yeah.
And
and so,
and what makes it such a beautiful thing for me is being able to extend opportunities for some of the brothers that I'm around, or just
mm.
some of the youth, Muslims, saying I got young brothers that work for me, with my car rental business. I have a
Yeah.
credit repair business that I'm working on, because I believe that, living in the West is important to understand the value of credit and the boundaries
Yeah.
of not allowing that process to lead you to something that may lead to something disobedient to Allah. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that I want to, you know, may
And
Allah.
like along that journey, you mentioned delegation, right? What would be, your kind of and obviously we know, when it comes to work, when it comes to business, we'll be working with the Muslims, and we try and work with the Muslims, but obviously, we might have non-Muslim associates as well. But when it comes to that aspect of delegation, what do you kind of look for within your people that you delegate tasks to, and that can have that level of trust in? Do you just keep it within the family and really close, or what's your kind of like criteria, if you were, for
Well, I always try to start with the Muslims, and it's not to be biased. It's just that a person that understands what a amana is, you'll
mm,
be more inclined to dealing with someone who understands what a amana is, you
yeah,
know, and not in a general sense, in accordance to the Sharia.
yeah, yeah,
Because I mean, I believe everyone in business understands what a trust is.
yeah,
But when you're dealing with someone who understands this trust and know that the consequences, of betraying this trust
mm-hmm,
is something that is immense and unavoidable.
mm,
And you don't have to worry about me. You
yeah,
have to worry about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
yeah, sir,
Now, for those who don't believe in Allah, you can only trust their understanding of what the general sense of a trust is. And
yeah,
you have to kind of gamble with whether or not their character is associated with that understanding. You know what I'm
mm,
saying? So no matter how you look at it, that vetting process is just that, is a vetting process. And no
yeah,
and not to even, I would never be biased in this, because I have non-Muslims
yeah,
who do great work, you know what I'm saying, in some of the projects. I have a podcast as well,
yeah,
called The Perspective,
yeah,
and my co-host is not Muslim. But we have a lot of things in common. We both was born and raised in Harlem. We both was in the streets. We both did Fed time. We
Yeah.
both got families. But the only difference is I'm Muslim, he's not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So my majority of my production staff, you know what I'm saying, or the producers of the show are non-Muslim.
Yeah.
Only one that's Muslim is me and the executive producer of the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so you know, and it runs like a well-oiled machine.
Mm.
You know, so it's not about partisanship.
Mm.
It's about tijara.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Prophet Sallallahu did business with the non-Muslims as well. The companions of the Prophet Sallallahu they did business with the non-Muslims as well. Even in some of the most vulnerable times, the most virtuous generation of Muslims, they put their trust, in those who were not Muslim. The first place where Islam was practiced out openly was in
Yeah.
Abyssinia, a land of non-Muslims. And they sought refuge in this place, from their relatives and those who was in opposition of Islam. So you're running from disbelievers, seeking refuge with disbelievers, and finding solace, you know, with disbelievers,
Yeah.
under the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
Yeah.
right? So alhamdulillah, I
Yeah.
mean, we take these examples and we try to apply them where, there's merit.
Yeah.
So, Jazakallah khair, Akif, for, giving me this opportunity to share your platform. I know it's been a minute coming. We missed each other.
Yeah.
Last time I was in Saudi, and you had fell ill. Alhamdulillah, the du'as was answered. You know,
Alhamdulillah.
yours first and foremost. I know anybody that's looking for shafa when they is the person who's receiving the sickness. So alhamdulillah, Allah answered your dua, He answered mine, He answered all those who had your
Amen.
best interest. And alhamdulillah, you look good, man.
Barakallah feek.
I don't think
Jazakallah khair, akhi.
I mean, yeah.
Appreciate the time that you came to spend us, and inshallah, we hope that you'll be back in Mecca and Medina soon, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah. Barakallahu fi akhi. Jazakallah.
Barakallah. Khair, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Life is one big road with a lot of signs, signs and more signs. You gotta make up your mind to face reality all the time. No.